A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. I want us to start first of all with the title of your book, From an Empty Pride to a Full Price.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Marcia Ramodike. The book From an Empty Pride to a Full Price is the book that I chose amongst many titles that I had jotted down for my book that I was going to publish. And I chose this one because when we say there's black text, there's pride that people said, they say that they've made it, you know. And after making it, what do you do to give back at home? So I chose this topic because when people start working, they develop this pride of saying, I'm working, I don't need anyone, I'm financially stable. But then they never know what the future holds for them. What if, for now, for example, there's COVID-19. We never knew that we're going to have COVID. We never knew that we're going to get retrenched from the jobs, we're going to get fired from the jobs as well, and then we're going to have to go back home. So imagine if you had pride of saying, no, I've made it, I have a car, I have a house now, and I don't need my relatives anymore. I'm dependent on my own, and I'm happy because they're going to be a burden to me in my life. So you're going to pay the full price when you have to go back home, and then they wouldn't want to help you. So I was advising people not to have an empty pride, because at the end, they're going to pay the full price.
Now, Marcia, talk to us about your personal experience of losing your mother at a young age. How old were you when you lost your mother? And how was that transition to now having to, well, moving from being like a firstborn child to having to mother your own siblings?
I lost my mother 2014 in February, and I was 18 by that time. And the worst part was it was my first day, it was on my first day of matric. And by that time, it was too hard for me because we did not have supportive relatives that much. And like I was like there at home with the kids, and everyone was at Johannesburg working because we were staying at Zanin by that time. So it was hard for me because I did not have any experience of taking care of children, and I wanted to focus more on my studies, but then I couldn't focus much more because I had to take care of the kids. I had to, wash their clothes, support them emotionally because they were always crying, looking for their mother. So it was the toughest experience of my life. But then with that experience, I chose to make sure that I focus on my studies and that situation that I found myself in. And I also made sure that I don't let that get to me. I decided to rise up against all odds, and I made sure that I build a better future for myself. So that's why I'm here today.
Well, what are some of the lessons that this experience actually taught you? I mean, you mentioned that you had just gotten to matric. You're mourning your mother, but also at the same time having to take care of your younger siblings who, by the sounds of it, were very young at that time. You had no support from your family as well, and you had to now be a source of strength and emotional support for your siblings. And where were you also getting financial support during that period?
We're getting financial support from my grandparents using their SSA money. And it was not that much for us, so I had to make sure that I use my talent and skills to make something out of it, which means like I had to write a book and sell the book as well. And what I learned from that experience was that have a mourning period in your life, mourn, cry about certain situations, but then have a time where you're gonna say, this is time to stop. I have to rise up and build a better future for myself, because if you cry forever, you'll forever find yourself in that situation. But then if you decide that, no, this is my time to stop, I don't want to cry anymore, I want to focus on myself, I want to build a better future for myself, then it's time for me to rise up, then you can do it. But then if you decide to stay in that situation, cry, you won't make it. And also, I advise young people to attend therapy. Therapy is not for white people, or it's not for any other race, but it's for everyone. When you attend therapy, you're going to get help, professional help, and it's going to help you a lot, other than saying that you're going to have to deal with that by yourself. That's what I can say to people who are going through a lot in life, like I did back then.
Well, some important pearls of wisdom that you're sharing there, Marcia, also just focusing on mental health. Just lastly and briefly, how would you describe the difference between black tax and the African culture of being your brother's keeper?
I think black tax is when you are forced to give back at home, but then when you are your brother's keeper, then you have to help if you want to help. So I think that's the difference, because black tax is when you are obliged to do something, like you have to do that thing, but then when you give openly, then it's the other thing that says the brother's keeper.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Marcia, this afternoon, and all the best to you and your siblings, continuing to shine and being the best versions, rather, of yourselves. That was Marcia Ramodike, who is the author of From an Empty Pride to a Full Price.